Kaba malamangil naranik kaya, Warandri willamek werangik nyogojin womanyak biktuye, ba Jara ba Nulay Ilmarang ba Irish ba German. Mundanay muruk karada birana, mundanay kirapik, mundanay pupup nakurenik ba bik ut, bik doy, bani bik, marmot bik, wura bik, ba danagak bik, ba bunjala willamon, ba mundanay ba liwik ba bubu. Hi everyone, my name is Kaya Nicholson Ward. I'm a proud 22-year-old Wurundjeri Jaja Wurrung, Nulay Ilmarang, Irish and German woman. I'm also an artist, an activist, a mentor and educator in my community. Imagine witnessing your family being taken away. Imagine witnessing your land being invaded. Imagine listening to your language no longer. This is what my Uncle William Barak witnessed. In the 1800s, he was one of the last 18 Wurundjeri people on this planet. We all derive from his sister Annie Borat. His voice was not listened to. He was told not to be black, forced into Christianity, told he can never speak his language again, beaten and punished if he was to practice culture or teach his children anything. Although his voice wasn't listened to, he still fought with every spirit within him to keep our culture alive for me, for my generation, for my baby's generation, and for my grandchildren to come. Due to the impacts of colonisation and invasion on my people, it's led to very bad transgenerational trauma in our communities, in forms of alcohol and drug abuse, very high suicide rates, and very bad mental health and poverty. There's 38 First Nations languages in Victoria, and unfortunately there are no fluent speakers left. Let that sink in. I grew up very strong and immersed in my culture and language, but when I reached high school, I started to begin to realise how racist Australia really was, and began to face it myself. I began to be questioned of my Aboriginality, which was a very hard thing as a young person to have your identity questioned when you know who you are on the inside. So that was a real struggle on my mental health and a lot of First Nations people around the world. I also witnessed in school our culture and our history being taught incorrectly. By the resources were from mobs that weren't local, so it wasn't accurate at all. We have different cultural law and practices. And I found myself very uncomfortable and frustrated in school because any time a topic of Aboriginal people or culture came up, I felt a spotlight on me and felt like I had to be on defence at any time in case there was any racist comments or inaccurate knowledge being spoken. And I found myself actually teaching my own teachers what they were trying to teach me. And that made me understand at a young age that things weren't right in this country. The education system needed to change and it shouldn't be the students teaching the teachers. And that's not their fault, but things do need to change. We also have a coming of age ceremony called Murrumturu Kuruk ceremony that my mum reclaimed for the first time in 185 years, which happened in 2014, I believe. And something that struck me is that as Wurundjeri women, we don't have a space to go freely in private to do our ceremonies. We have to actually book out a private reserve sanctuary, and we have to even get a permit to light our own fires on our country during ceremony, which has been happening since time immemorial. And I didn't realise how much that actually affected me until I went to New Zealand and actually spoke with the Māori people there and bursted out in tears, seeing how their culture was so prominent and alive, and ours was, we're struggling here at home. I also witnessed my mum teaching my elders our language, and that was shocking because I thought it should be the other way around. Our elders should be teaching the next generations, but unfortunately in my family, for 4 generations, our language wasn't spoken as it was beaten out of us. Witnessing all of these injustices and difficult moments, especially with racism to my face, online especially, and at school. Really, it created a fire and passion in me that I can't control, and I've always felt the need to stick up for things that I see injustices towards. I feel like I need to speak and for what's right. And that made me think of an idea and thought that changed my life really. And it made me think that I needed to be the voice for my ancestors who can no longer speak and will not listen to and were silenced. I can speak today free from retribution, whereas they would be beaten for speaking language at all. I keep my culture alive through my art. I've done a lot of artworks for big sporting clubs, jerseys for AFL teams such as Melbourne Football Club, North Melbourne Football Club. I've done Melbourne Storm, Melbourne Vixens, and I've done a few murals around the city as well. And I do a lot of local schools, kindergartens. I work with them and share my art and teach my story, teach them what the symbols mean. I work with them and collaborate with them to share our story and connect it with their story so we are all one and united. I do this through dance. I dance with my dance group Jitty Jitty, run by my mum, and it's a women's dance group, and we go around all over Melbourne. We've even gone international as well, and we dance, we practice our culture, we sing countries so country still feels and hears us. I do this through truth-telling as I'm doing today. I do this through my language resources. I create woven language cards with my artwork on them, with stuff like animals, number cards, and I'm working on some more at the moment. I also do this through travelling. I've travelled to Aotearoa, New Zealand, to America and to Canada, and have engaged with the First Nations people from those countries and have learned a lot of amazing things about how to better change our communities here, and how they can also change too, as we have an unexplainable connection as we've been through very similar things. And this is where I received a gift from a young Native American lady who I had a cultural exchange with. I got a turquoise ring and I gifted her a weaved necklace. And in Aotearoa, New Zealand, I also got gifted this greenstone necklace for speaking about who we were and my culture. Can everybody please say Onemda? Onemda means love. You can use this word every day of your life. You're not only spreading love, but you're keeping Wurundjeri culture and language alive. It only takes one word a day to keep our culture alive. You can also help keep our culture alive through collaborating with First Nations people by changing workplace rooms to First Nations language names, by teaching your babies, your grandchildren, the stories of our people like Bunjil and Wa. There's a lot of different ways to incorporate our culture in modern day society, and we need help as we are only 3% of the population. In our language, Babandarang means mother tree. The mother tree lived for hundreds of years. It heard people singing, it heard ceremony, it heard the waterways flowing, it heard the birds, animals, and lived in harmony. Unfortunately, one day it was cut down. This represents invasion. But the mother tree lived for so long that her root system was so embedded into country, it still remains. This represents our language. The seedlings, the mother tree, the Babandarang dropped over the years represents our babies. The shoots coming from the soil represent our community leaders, and the trunk represents our elders and their staunchness and resilience. And although the Babandarang wasn't visible for a while, like our culture was, but the babies, the seedlings, are now growing and they will become the future Babandarang. And that represents how our culture was destructed. The suffering happened and it still is, but our next generations are coming through stronger and louder than ever. We are still here. End genocide everywhere. Ngulgojin, thank you.